Oregon or something, far Eastern Oregon, and he's not going to be able to join us. So we won't have Jim with us. Did you hear of anybody else, Reva, that wasn't going to be able to make it?
I just heard that Shristi needs to leave at 3, but she'll be joining. And then I'm actually connecting with Marette right now. I think she's having a little connection issue, but she should be here soon.
Okay, great. If Shristi's going to leave, I think we had a place somewhere in the agenda for her to give us an update, and we should make that happen. Make sure we
Before 3. Yeah.
go. Yeah, that's an important update. Okay, well, it's 1:01. I think we can kind of get rolling. We do have most people here, so why don't we just check in with everybody? Mark Labhart, I was hearing you talk about it being dry up there. Same here.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, Sisters is kind of in an odd place right now. Usually we get some significant snow by now, and hopefully Mount Bachelor's open by Thanksgiving. Well, Mount Bachelor has 2 inches of snow on the ground, and the passes are all bare. Hoodoo's bare, and so we definitely need some moisture coming our way. I was on an OWEB meeting this morning, and I guess up in Northeast Oregon, Eliza Jane, you got a little bit of snow up there. That's what I was told. So that's somewhat good news. At least somebody's getting some moisture. So otherwise, things are pretty quiet here. Yep, just going along. Got a commission meeting next week in Salem. So there's a number of mostly fish issues that are going to be on the agenda for next week. So looking forward to that.
Well, thanks, Mark. Well, Eliza Jane, did you get some snow?
Yes, yeah, we did. Let's see, Sunday, I guess, and snow today. So, and I kind of got caught with my pants down, and I have some irrigation water. I didn't get shut down, so that's been my day. I broke the main line so far, and I feel silly for having done this so long and getting caught. But anyway, yeah, we've had tons of moisture. It's been really good. And I got my cow elk on Sunday and was able to slide her down the snow to the truck, which was pretty fun. I have this little puppy, right? So I might hear what we're talking about today. What else? All else is good. All else is good. It's nice to see everybody.
Sorry about your main line, but otherwise things sound good.
Yeah, they do. And I have my last OWEB meeting too, in Astoria in October. So you've got all of me now.
All right.
We're sorry to see her go off OWEB. She was a stalwart for 8 years on OWEB.
Thanks, Mark.
Term as chair and kept us all under control and was a good voice. So glad to have her there.
Thanks for that, Eliza Jane. That's a great service to do for that. And that's a great committee. Really great.
Yeah, it is. It's good work, good people. I enjoyed it immensely. Yeah. Also glad to be done.
Yeah. Sometimes it's like that.
Yeah.
Mark Stern.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Nice to see everybody. I can't really remember when we had our last meeting, so I'm trying to dig for what's relevant or what might have already happened since then. But we had a week in Utah, which was actually a beautiful fall week with colors and just a frosting of snow, visiting some friends and getting outside. So that was nice seeing some of that area. And otherwise, been kind of low key with some family visiting here over Thanksgiving, and it's all been good. So no snow means also no rain in Portland. The days have been nice, but you can look up and see there's not a lot of snow on St. Helens or Mount Hood.
Yeah.
I did go out. I was going to say, I did go out on a field trip to Mount Hood Community College in Gresham, which I guess my mistake. I just had this image of Gresham, which I've always had for a long time. But through the middle of the campus is a creek that runs by, and they actually have a 60-foot earthen dam there that they're on the verge of taking out to recreate the canyon. And this canyon and this creek connects to the Sandy River, and they have salmon and whatnot that are, come right up into that area. And it looked like a really neat project. And they had all the Mount Hood operations staff out there who were really excited about the possibility of it. And it was neat to see between that and the Soil and Water Conservation District that was kind of spearheading the project. Commissioner King was out there, as were two of the Metro councilors were also present. So they've got a lot of energy to put that back in place, and it looks like a great little canyon and a great project in an urban area. Neat to see.
Mark, what was it? Do you remember what's the Soil and Water Conservation District name? Do you remember?
Yeah, it's East Multnomah that Kelly Beamer heads up.
Yeah, that is a really pretty powerful soil and water conservation district that I've seen them do some. I was surprised. I mean, I don't think of that happening very much in urban Oregon, but they're really doing some great projects around there. I'd seen them come up in previous conversations.
Yeah, Metro is pretty engaged also.
Oh, that's great. Kelly, how's the coast?
It is beautiful, and there's king tides right now, so everything's bigger and better and crazier, and so I always enjoy that. But we don't spend as much time on the beach during this time, so we've been in the woods a lot. And my husband got a buck since the last time I saw you guys too, which was wonderful and fun to cut up with the girls, and they help us package all the meat and make everything, so that's always a fun time of the year. And been out mushroom hunting. The mushrooms have been popping over here, so lots of fresh mushrooms, and work is going pretty well so far too still, so we're hanging in there. Life's good.
Well, thanks, Kelly. Sristi, how are you?
Doing well, Carl. Thanks for asking. It's been a good summer into fall transition, I'd say. Managed to squeeze in a couple of trips around Oregon. We were by the Gold Hill area near Medford fishing. I caught my first trout of this year there, so yay. And my husband got a few more than I did, but whatever. And and then we were also in Commissioner Labhart's neck of the woods in October near Sun River area, and got snow at Paulina Creek Peak like in October, which was amazing, which we weren't expecting. So that was great. But yeah, otherwise just around town here, I have Johnson Creek, because Mark Stern was mentioning Gresham. I'm in Gresham, and Johnson Creek runs behind my house, and the hooded mergansers are back. The boys and girls are back in town now, so I'm watching them do their dance and their courtship and everything, is super fun.
Oh, that's great. The head of OWEB at the time I was on there lived on one of those creeks and kept talking about all the hooded mergansers. That was definitely her favorite bird there.
So beautiful. And there's like a whole, I think 15 or 20 of like wood ducks around too. It's very pretty. Yeah.
What a beautiful combination, hooded merganser.
Mm-hmm. Lots of colors between the two species.
Hey, Marette.
Hello, how's it going? We're fine. It's been a nice fall. We had some beautiful fall color, and then it got really cold. We took off for the alkali desert of Northern California and Oregon, Summer Lake and Surprise Valley, and that was a nice change. And also just to see these rural communities after spending time in Bend, which is just booming, and Sisters too. So much construction going on, and so many people in Cedarville and Alturas and Lakeview, all those, Paisley, those towns are still alive, but it's a little rough going right now. And then I've been just writing a lot of history articles for the local paper, and that's been fun. So that's about it.
Hey, Marette, we've gotten a few of your articles and they've been fantastic. Thank
Oh,
you.
thanks.
And Reva, I think, if you ever get your hands on those, make sure you send them out to the rest of the committee. I think people saw the great articles she did on our trip in that area before, and just really a great advocate for the committee. She's really done a great job. So, Marette, that's a real talent you have. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah.
Good to see everybody. And today's Jane Hartwell's birthday, I noticed. So
Well, maybe that's why
if
she's
she's
late.
not here, it's a good excuse.
She's going to come about 1 or an hour late. So, Reva, what's going on with you?
Hey, Carl, thanks for asking. Well, I had a pretty nice Thanksgiving. And let's see, our last meeting was October 7th, and since then I have gone to I wanted to tell you all about the Oregon Outdoor Recreation Summit that I attended to do some outreach for the OCRF program, and it was a really good summit. It was in Pendleton this year, and I was able to bring some of the Quinn Thomas communication materials that we shared with you all at our last meeting. I was able to bring like the Spanish translation handout and some of those handouts. And so it was a good event. And so got to connect with some new potential grantees. And I also encountered quite a few prior grantees. OCRF grantees were at the meeting in Pendleton. So it was a good event that went well. Good outreach for the program. Yeah, that's what I wanted to share.
Reva, while you were there, it just occurred to me. I mean, I saw the announcement for that meeting. That would have been a great venue to talk about the 1% for Wildlife bill. Did you hear, was there any discussion about that there? Did it ever come up that you saw?
Not specifically, but the tabling that I did for ODFW's exhibitor booth, we had Oregon is Worth Protecting information. We had Everyone Belongs Outdoors. These are some ODFW campaigns that we were promoting at the ODFW booth. So we had some good information on that. And then we also did a raffle for these Oregon is Worth Protecting tumblers that have the 5 sensitive species of greatest need on them, conservation need, like the Sierra Nevada red fox. And so we did some outreach with that and had a raffle for those tumblers, but
Yeah,
not
I guess we should
specifically.
just keep our eyes, or I should be thinking more about that. With when groups like that get together, that's just a nice venue that we as private individuals could maybe get something done or communicate in a venue like that about the 1% bill.
Right.
So,
Yeah, with your private citizen hat on.
Yeah, got to keep thinking about that.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, thank you all for your updates. I can tell you here, unfortunately, like it is in Bend, it's dry. It looked really promising early in the spring, but that didn't keep up or in the fall. And as you know, we had a great water year last year, which was perfect timing for the Chinook return. And I'm sure you all are well aware of that. That's the most glorious thing that's happened here in the entire time I've lived here. It's hard to articulate how incredible that was. Just for those of you that may not know the details, the dams came out last October, and fish passage really didn't get going till about mid-October, and then the water was really murky and a lot of sediments, and we still had a tremendous return of salmon, but they never made it as well as we knew past Keno Dam, which is a dam that kind of leads to the upper basin and hundreds of miles of potential spawning habitat. And people were so surprised that they made it as they did, even last year, that they really weren't ready to monitor them, didn't have a camera or anything there. So this year they got a little more proactive, and one afternoon I got this video texted to me of the very top rung of the ladder at Keno, and here's this big Chinook powering right over the top, and it was like everyone was so excited that that happened. So here we knew, okay, one Chinook made it, you know, and that was enough. It's like, oh my God, that's great. Well, to make an amazing story as short as I can, within 10 days of that, they were everywhere. They not only made it past Keno, they made it past the Link River Dam, going through a really tough ladder there. And they went all the way up into the Sprague, into the wood, into the springs around the lake. There's to me, the most compelling thing, and I chased them all over. I got to see salmon everywhere. And from where I'm sitting right now, 4 miles up the lake, there's a little spring called Barkley Springs. It's a big sucker spawning area. And nobody even thought about it as a salmon place. It didn't even was on nobody's radar. And it's a little roadside spring that's kind of a crummy park, and it turns into a little ditch that goes between the highway and the railroad. Then it goes west for about 30 yards as a pretty decent stream, but it goes under the railroad. There's a railroad crossing, and they put a bunch of spawning gravel there for suckers. And once again, I got a text. It was like, there's salmon at Barkley Springs. And I jumped in the car with my wife and went up there. We looked around, couldn't find any. We're in the nicer part of it. And then we thought, well, let's go over by the railroad bridge, which you're crossing a highway, and it's just a mess. And looked down off the railroad bridge, and boom, there was a beautiful hen guarding a red. And it was like, oh, that's incredible. And went back 2 days later, and there was 9 Chinook in that place, and it was one giant red. It's just like finding a needle in a haystack, and in that little tiny creek that dumped right into Upper Klamath Lake is just really just amazing thing. I just can't even say how spectacular that is. So it hopefully gives us all some hope, and seeing how resilient systems can be. You just do the right thing, which we're all trying to do, and just let things go. So that, who knows what will happen. And to finish that off, Kelly, you mentioned the mushrooms. Well, so the fall here is great mushroom time, and different kind of chanterelle, the Cascade chanterelle, which are these giant, massive chanterelles. And the fall is the most glorious time in the Klamath Basin, absolutely the most glorious. And I've always thought what a wonderful time, but I didn't realize how empty it had been for all these years because there were no salmon. And now there's salmon. So, and the salmon came exactly when the chanterelle started popping. So now it's this new thing. It's like chanterelles and salmon. It's going to be a great thing to see. And now fall in the Klamath Basin is full, and it's a really amazing thing. So anyway, that's my take on what's happened here. Pretty great stuff. All right, so with that, what do we got? You want to recognize members of the public, Reva?
Yes, I do. I don't know if we have any today, but we definitely have our guest speakers that I could recognize. So we have Fiona Smeaton and Leslie Bliss Ketchum, and Andy Lindberg and Tim Gresseth. These are all guest speakers today, but thank you all so much for joining. Appreciate it. And of course, we have Tiffany Caldwell and Sarah Reif, Habitat Division Administrator, here today with us. Thank you, everyone, for joining today.
Great. Well, thank you all for being here. Okay, with that, let's move on to approve some minutes.
Okay, just give me 1 second, Carl. Is that showing up for you all?
Yes, it is.
Okay, great.
I would move to approve the October 7th, 2025 meeting minutes with the continued authority to correct spelling, grammar, and punctuation.
Thank you.
Second
Do
it.
I have a second?
I'll second.
Who was that?
Liza Jane.
Thanks, Liza Jane.
Mhm.
Motion a second. All in favor, raise your hands. Okay, all looks good. Great. So Sristi, I understand you're leaving at 3, is that right?
Yes, I have another call at 3. Sorry about that.
Well, that's no problem. Maybe what we'll do is we'll go ahead with these project presentations. And then just to make sure we don't forget, let's follow that with, if you don't mind giving us an update on what you're working on with the legislature. Can you do that for us?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to.
Great. So we'll do that after these presentations. So Reva, you want to get going with the first one?
Happy to. I'd like to introduce our first guest speaker today. So we have Oregon Wildlife Foundation. We have Tim Gresseth, Executive Director. And with him is Leslie Bliss Ketchum, I believe, from Samara Group. And they're here to talk about the Portland Urban Wildlife Information Network project, or UWIN PDX. And I will let you guys take it away and go ahead and share your slides and whatever you'd like to share with us today. Thanks for joining.
Well, thanks for having us. Yeah, I think Fiona is going to get the slides pulled up. And so both, just for clarity, Fiona and Leslie work with a Samara Group. Leslie founded Samara Group. It's a wildlife ecology company based in Portland. And Fiona is working as our coordinator for the UN project. We'll go through a little bit of history here with some opening slides, but this group founded, so Samara Group, Bird Alliance of Oregon, and Oregon Wildlife Foundation worked together to found the Oregon, or the Portland chapter, I guess it's the only Oregon chapter, the Portland chapter of the Urban Wildlife Information Network. And it's now an international program. There are chapters in other countries, and the focus is really understanding what wildlife live around us in urban areas, and its sort of impact and I guess influence on management decisions. And the idea here is, how do we live together? So both Fiona and Leslie are going to take the lead on talking through the program in more detail, and then I'll close out with some comments about the organization of the Portland chapter and where we're trying to go. So I guess I'll turn this over to Fiona. I think she's going to start out.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Tim. Thanks for introducing us, and happy to be here. Yeah, I can just go ahead and jump in, unless Leslie, you wanted to say a quick hello first.
No, go for it.
All right. Perfect. All right. So we've kind of covered this a little bit, and I'm sure many of you are familiar with this UN program through the grant. But just as kind of a refresher, anyone who's not familiar, the Urban Wildlife Information Network is this international effort originally started and coordinated by the Urban Wildlife Institute through the Lincoln Park Zoo. It was created as a way to standardize how we are collecting wildlife data within cities specifically, and to provide this single data set where we can work collaboratively, share this data, and compare data across cities. So there are quarterly calls within the UN network. All of our international partners often attend these, and we can hear updates from all of participating cities, discuss the various subcommittees, and hear about outcomes from events like the recent UN summit. There's also opportunities for us to hear about research proposals and ways to be more involved by sharing data. So here at the Portland chapter, we monitor wildlife across the metro area in order to track this species diversity. We look at seasonal activity and start to evaluate habitat use so that we can start to track patterns and identify opportunities for making these on-the-ground restoration recommendations. And we can also contribute to this shared global database so that we can address these larger research questions in the future. So here is a map or multiple maps of all of our wildlife monitoring locations. The West Transect starts out in Hillsboro, Oregon, and goes into West Portland, and we have 14 locations on that transect. There's a small southwest offshoot transect that has 3 locations, and that goes out towards Tigard, Oregon. And then the East Transect starts out in Southeast Portland and goes out towards the Gresham area, and there's 10 locations with that. And this is all according to the UN protocols. All monitoring locations should be approximately 1,000 meters apart. They can be a little bit further apart than that, but they try not to be closer and together than that. And they should also be set on a gradient that allows us to look at, to sample across diverse different habitat types. So that's kind of why we set them up in these locations. So to get into our 2024-2025 season, I'll kind of go over the process for how we collect this data. This project is really made possible by our amazing volunteers. We have some really dedicated and consistent volunteers. They are the ones who actually go out and visit the camera locations and manage the equipment. So the cameras are set for 4 times per year. This, again, in accordance with UN protocol. So we monitor for the full month of January. We look at April, July, and October. And we, the core team presenting here today, work with the volunteers to get all of the equipment that they need and make sure that they understand all the different protocols and best practices involved in this. And then they are the ones that set out the cameras. So they send them out at the start of the month, and then they perform a mid-month check to make sure that everything is running smoothly. There's not too many false triggers. There's no damage or camera stolen. They report that at that time if it is. And then they retrieve the cameras at the end of the month. So they then download all of the photos from the SD cards and upload them into our internal Google Drive, where we sort through them a little bit. Again, this is when we can look at if there's a ton of false triggers, if there was grass blowing in the wind or something like that, that causes a ton of extra photos. We can sort through that and clean things up so that we have a clean data set. And then those photos go directly into the UN database, which again is hosted through the Lincoln Park Zoo. So once the photos are uploaded into the UN database, we have another group of amazing, super dedicated volunteers who help us to sort through and identify all of these wildlife species that they see. So through the UN website, since it's a citizen science effort, we have a double identification process where each photo has 2 independent reviewers. So volunteers are assigned a group of photos and they can toggle through them and identify all the species that they see in each photo. And we have a list of common species in our study area. So the volunteers pick them out from a drop-down menu. They don't just type in whatever they see. And they are encouraged to make their best guess as to what they can identify. A lot of them are more familiar with working with wildlife species. But if they're really unsure, they can mark down unknown, and they can also leave comments. We also have categories like bird species cannot ID or squirrel species cannot ID if sometimes it's really tricky to identify it down to species per photo. And then from there, if there's a discrepancy between the 2 independent reviewers, then the photo goes through a third-party validator, which is usually Leslie or myself or one of our long-term volunteers, where we kind of break the tie and figure out what exactly was in that photo. So it's been a successful workflow for us and gives us more of that assurance that the data is as accurate as possible. So yeah, that's kind of the process of how we collect all of our data. And with that, I will pass it off to Leslie, who's going to talk about some of our findings.
Yeah, so we've had a lot to pull together recently. We had a kind of a backlog of tagging and different things. And so we're just starting to get around to summarizing our 2024 data. 2025 is going to go much faster. So I want to recognize that it's a short presentation today, and there's so many different ways that we could examine this data. I'm really excited to continue kind of digging into this. And I'll talk about that in a minute. But just to quickly summarize kind of our totals for 2024, we have over 7,700 records. Records are considered these individual detections, so the photos that are tagged, and so each individual photo. And of those, we had about 24% birds and 76 mammals. We had a few other things in there that I'll get to in a minute, but in general, that's the composition. Cameras, as you know, those of you that are familiar with working with cameras, that's probably the things they're the best at actually capturing regularly. As far as tax is concerned. Within that, we estimate about 62 different species, and I put that in quotes because, as Fiona mentioned, we do have the cannot ID categories, and those are included there, but I did exclude humans, domestic animals, unknowns, and invertebrates. We had a couple different invertebrates that got in there, like a moth and like a praying mantis, which I thought was really kind of cool. But then, so we included those other things in there, and the breakdown of those was about 66% birds and 34% mammals. So just kind of interesting that kind of the majority of our detections we have are coming from the mammal group, but then the majority of our species right now are birds, which also kind of lines up with the composition of species that we have in the state. Again, high level right now, but go ahead and go to the next slide. And we can also look at what are we getting as far as our whole year's worth of monitoring, as far as what species are we seeing across the entire year versus only in 1 or 2 seasons. And I just thought this was also kind of interesting as we started to explore the data, that for our bird species, the darker the color on these graphs, the more seasons they were detected in. So for that dark wedge in the yellow for the birds, only 17% of the species that we documented were detected throughout all 4 seasons, which again makes sense for what we know about migratory birds that might be coming in and visiting these areas, but not sticking around for the whole set of seasons. And so some UN folks decide to monitor only in certain seasons. So I feel like these data really kind of support the fact that we are doing this year round. Kind of an interesting contrast, though, that for our mammal species, over 52% of them were detected all year round, and just a few at other times. But what has been really fun to explore with this data right now is what's going on at our individual locations. And so if we go to the next slide, what you can see here is a snapshot from one of our specific monitoring locations, George Himes Park. In the next slide here in a minute, I'll show you the map again so you can see where that's located. But for this location, we had 532 records composed of 9 species. And as you can see, you know, only a few of them were only seen like a few times, like we did see beaver a couple times there, rabbits, mice. But the top 3, and actually the top 1 at this park was actually elk. So we had elk, coyote, and black-tailed deer were our top 3 detections. And just to show you where this is located, we'll go ahead and go to the next slide, just as a refresher of where George Himes Park is. So in relationship to kind of these very developed areas in Portland, much closer to Portland Core than a lot of our other monitoring locations. But we actually had a ton of elk there, which I was like, is that for real? We go back and we look at the photos and yeah, there was a ton of elk there, which I thought was kind of an amazing, something that was really a surprise to me, but very cool. So being able to kind of learn these things, there's a lot more. We are in the process of developing individual reports right now for each of the monitoring locations so that we can share them with our dedicated volunteers so they can see how their work is paying off in learned information, but also so that we can share this information with our land managers and the entities and agencies that have given us permission to put cameras on these locations so that we can share this back with them and also get feedback from them on how this data can help support them in their efforts within these parks. So really looking forward to some of those future explorations with our various partners at different levels. Yeah, and then what would a presentation be on camera monitoring without some highlights? So, and more pictures. So, and Fiona, feel free to jump in and share on any of these, but we had several pictures of coyote pups throughout the region. Of course, we had fawns. We've got tons and tons of squirrels, mostly non-native squirrels, but we do get plenty of Douglas squirrels too, and the robin here. And then, of course, there's tons of nocturnal photos. Here we get owls occasionally, so a few more of the elk there for you from George Himes, skunks, and of course tons of raccoons and possums. So in any case, yeah, continue to be excited to see what we get on these. With that, I will hand it back over to Tim to wrap it up and give you an idea of what we're doing next.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, the George Himes photos of elk were kind of blew my mind. I mean, that's very much center, city center kind of core. And to think we have, elk moving in and out of the park is sort of fascinating in a lot of different ways. So I wanted to spend just a brief moment about UN organization, because this truly started as a conversation, which everything does, right? It's sort of an idea. Wouldn't it be great to have a chapter here in Portland? And so, we made that happen. Oregon Wildlife Foundation has served as the fiscal sponsor for the UN project, even though Bird Alliance of Oregon is the primary recruiter and trainer of volunteers. And then Fiona, who works for Samara, is our coordinator. At various times, Portland State University has been in and out as a partner as well, both on the coordination side, but also providing some student volunteers as well. So what we're really interested in, we think this is not just a fun project. The idea here is to actually generate good data that land managers, particularly our public land managers in the greater Portland area, can utilize to better understand, what wildlife presence is, on the property that they're responsible for, but also potentially how we manage that property for those species to some degree, protect their presence, encourage more, whatever the goals would be for that piece of property. And so, the way we're looking at this is trying to figure out how can we utilize the data that UN is generating to really enable better management decisions, maybe even some policy choices in this urban setting. And then we're also looking at how we can really utilize UN and its approach as a way to be incorporated into large landscape efforts, partnerships, for example, like the West Willamette Restoration Partnership, which is focused on the West Hills, and trying to create contiguousness, if you will, a bit of a wildlife corridor. How can we, utilize the tools that UN brings to the table for the purposes of determining presence, but also understanding, what wildlife are up to. And so our objective here is to try to find ways to make the program sustainable in the long term, including potentially spinning out UN as its own 501c3 tax-exempt nonprofit. In the short term, we're going to register it as a nonprofit corporation in Oregon, and then see where it takes us. And then, of course, key to all of this is resources. How do we make sure that we can keep this program going? We're continuing to look for ways that we can diversify the monies available to support the work that's being done. So, do partners want to make a contribution? Can we integrate it into grants that are being written for some of these larger landscape efforts? Just a few thoughts about kind of where we're headed with UN, but we're learning a lot about what kind of wildlife are living around us in urban settings in the greater Portland metro area in this case, and I'm excited for where this might take us. So. I guess I'll stop there or pause there for questions that you might have.
We got several questions here. Let's see who's first. I can't see the one who's got their first hand up.
I think it's Commissioner Labhart.
Mark Labhart.
Okay, comment and a question. As usual, Tim, Oregon Wildlife Foundation steps up to the plate. So congratulations. Thank you for your efforts to fund this effort. Sounds like a great project. So as usual, I can't thank you enough for the work that the Oregon Wildlife Foundation does. On the question side, some of the presenters mentioned the protocol. So I assume that it's mostly a camera operation. And as they were talking, I was wondering if anybody's ever considered the possibility of Motus towers to see what birds may be flying by. Now I see a smile on your face, so you bet somebody's been thinking about it. But Motus towers are pretty cool to see what is flying by, and sometimes the information you get from those is absolutely amazing. So, answer to that question?
Yeah, I think Tim, feel free to jump in too, but I'll just throw out there that we've been looking with the whole UN network. They've actually been testing some acoustic monitoring protocols to go along with it. And we are looking at ways to also like diversify the taxa and the different types of species that we could add to this list with different techniques like that. Yeah, Tim, do you want to add to anything about that? Oh, you're muted.
Thank you. See, evergreen reminder. I'm just really excited to add that potential in the near future. We've been talking about it. I think it's a great idea, Mark, and we're hoping that we can do that. We of course need some resources to make that happen. I would say that one of the challenges we do have is the loss of equipment. It doesn't happen frequently, thankfully. We do a pretty good job of making sure that the cameras are a little bit harder to see by kind of people passing by, but we've had multiple cameras stolen and things like that. So, audio moths or other kinds of listening devices are also something that we're want to do, but also a little bit concerned about the, being able to hang on to them and not lose them. But with resources, we'll be adding that in the future.
Sristi.
Thank you for that really great presentation. My question was, and I'm not sure who can answer that, so open to all three of you, but when you mentioned there's about 62 species that were documented in your survey, curious if you looked at if any or how many of those species are like a species of greatest conservation need, or in the SWAP, it's the State Wildlife Action Plan itself, and if you have that information.
Yeah, we're definitely going to keep digging into that as we start to process the data. I think that's a really important question. And I know, like, for example, one of the things that we're really curious about is, like, do we have any Western gray squirrels in this area? And it can be tricky for volunteers to differentiate. And so if we do get those detections, we look at them very closely. And so far we haven't had a positive hit on that, but that's just one example. And so we're going to continue looking at that and looking at those special categories and see what comes up with those data and those species. Yeah. So far, lots of deer and raccoons, but there's still lots of other things too. So yeah, excellent point though. We're going to keep an eye on that for sure.
Yeah. Who was next? Liza Jane.
Thank you, Carl. I was just wondering about what brand of camera you're using. Do you use the cards that you have to go replace, or because there's some, and I wonder if the company itself would be interested in contributing, but you watch them on your cell phone. So if somebody's stealing your camera, you're watching them steal your camera real time, and it's pretty handy for the law enforcement, but they're also really awesome because they're real time on your phone. You don't have to fool with the card running out or something like that. So if that's something of interest to you, get a hold of me.
Yeah, that would be great. Looking for those kind of partnerships would be awesome. Right now, it's mostly the Bushnell, ones that do have the change out cards. So yeah, that would be great.
Okay, Leslie, I'll look into that.
Thanks.
Mark Stern.
Yeah, I would just chime in. I think it's a really cool project. Obviously, you guys have covered a fair bit of ground in the metro area, so kudos to all of you for that effort. I was just curious, two things. One is, at some point, is the information available online if people want to look at it? And the second one is maybe you could talk a little bit about, are there other UN sites in Washington or adjoining states, or just sort of how do you engage with the network there?
Yes, I mean, again, Tim and Fiona, feel free to jump in, but I'm actually the network, I think, is such a powerful piece of this, because it is so large now and so and becoming more and more international. So there's, I believe, potentially even 2 UN cities up in Washington state. I'll have to double check that, but there's at least one up there that we've talked to about how they run their program and information there. There's a quarterly call, and everyone that's a partner city is encouraged, even if they can't attend in person, to put in updates on a shared spreadsheet so we can all see kind of what everyone's up to. We have also participated over time. We've participated in several different studies where we've contributed data from Portland to different efforts. There's one that's actively going on right now looking at correlations between outdoor cat detections and other species, and if they can find anything related to what they're seeing across different cities. So we've offered to contribute data to that study. Also, in the future, as we continue to kind of galvanize our research directions, that would be available to us as well. We could say, hey, we want to do a comparison of Portland data with all these other cities, and that could be available to us. I don't have the exact number of cities in my head, and Fiona or Tim, if you remember that, feel free to jump in. But I would encourage you to check out the main UN site that Lincoln Park Zoo hosts, because they'll show, there's a map with all the different cities, and I know they've added some. There's a couple of camera stations now in Madagascar. There's some in Italy. There's some in South America. So they've really started to grow that network beyond just the continental US, which is really exciting. So
Yes, and I put that link in the chat for anyone who wants to look at that.
thank you, Fiona.
Great. That was a great presentation. Thanks for the great work you're doing. I see the applications could be really tremendous, especially as you mentioned, Tim, with corridors and applying some of this information to really maybe facilitate more wildlife in the urban setting. And so that's all great stuff. So thanks for taking the time to come and put that talk together. We really appreciate it.
Thank you all. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right.
Great. All right, Reva, I think we're scheduled for the next presentation as being next. Is that correct?
Screen just went black for a second. There we go. Sorry, guys, my screen went black for a second there. That's right, Carl. We have our next presenters up. And I'm happy to introduce them and then let them take it away. So we have the West Wind Stewardship Group is here today. And we have Andy Lindberg, the executive director, I believe, and Laura Chase. And they're gonna talk about the West Wind Camp Scholarship Program. And I'm looking forward to hearing about it. I'll let you guys share slides and take it away. Thanks for joining today.
Great. Thank you, Reva. I'm going to see if I can share my screen. Hold on. It's asking me to do a lot of different things all at once. There we go. I have to give Microsoft a permission to do a lot of things. Let me come back and see if I can share some things. Let's see, content from camera. What? Oh my goodness. Let me see if I can do what I wanted to do. I don't think I'm going to be able to.
Andy, is it giving you the option of like sharing your window versus a full
There
screen,
we
or?
go. I think I need to jump out and back in so that I can do that. I apologize. Laura, do you want to introduce yourself while I do that?
Yeah, I can get
I'll
us
be right back.
rolling at least and get us kind of talking about what Westwind is, you might be wondering. And that's a great question. And also, hi, everyone. My name is Laura Chase. I'm the program director at the Westwind Stewardship Group. I've been in this role since 2019, and we're an independent nonprofit that primarily runs a summer camp program on the Oregon coast. We're also a conservation organization. We run year-round programming. We're an outdoor school site for those who are familiar with that program that runs through the school districts here in Oregon. And then we also welcome rental groups. We operate on 529 acres of protected wilderness on the Oregon coast. It's about 20 miles north of Lincoln City as the crow flies, they say. We're just under, if you've ever hiked up Cascade Head, the natural resource site, which you can see in this beautiful photo, which is on the left. We're the beach that you look down upon when you're standing on the top of Cascade Head, which is a nature conservancy land. And so, Andy, are you ready for me to, I think you're muted, but I think.
I work in the woods. I'm not a tech guy.
I'll pass it back to you.
I always talk about how Westwind is.
You got muted again.
I talk about how Westwind is the Oregon coast greatest hits. We're 529 acres, as Laura says. If you hike Cascade Head, we're the view. We have coastal rainforest. We have coastal prairie. We're right on the estuary of the Salmon River. We are within the Cascade Head UN Biosphere Reserve. We're within the Cascade Head Scenic Research Area. We also have a conservation easement with the people of Oregon through the Oregon Watershed Enhancement Board. So our land management decisions are run through both the federal government and the state government. And frankly, we're fine with that because it's our mission to preserve this remarkable property in perpetuity. A little history, Westwind is on the unceded land of the Chinook and the Tillamook peoples, represented by the Siletz and the Grand Ronde. In the early 1930s, the Portland YWCA purchased the property to begin bringing urban girls out to learn about the outdoors. So we've just had a presentation about about wildlife in the city, and Westwind is about bringing people from the city out into the wild. As the needs of Portland women began to change, the Portland YWCA found that having a summer camp didn't really meet their mission anymore. And so about 20 years ago, our organization, the Westwind Stewardship Group, was formed, and they first purchased the property and began making some significant conservation moves. I talk about how Westwind is the remarkable place it is partially through benign neglect. And so for the past 20 years, we've been working with local agencies to learn more about the property and how our land management decisions can be part of the broader landscape of the work that's been going on the Salmon River estuary for decades. We took over all of the programming from the YWCA about 10 years ago in 2014. And that means that we bring anywhere from 800 to 1,000 young people out during the summer to spend usually a week, Sunday through Friday, at Westwind residentially. We can handle, if every bed is filled, we can have about 165 people overnight at Westwind. And so we hire a staff of about 50 young people to be our camp counselors, to be our leadership staff, to be our education staff. And that's what this project is about bringing people, young people, to Westwind. American summer camps were created to serve generally white, middle-class, able-bodied people, and there are lots of people for whom summer camp experience is not a part of what their family would have done or what they would think of as an opportunity as a part of their lives. It's our mission to inspire people to be stewards of the outdoors, and to do that, we need to get as many different types of people out to Westwind so that, that we can learn together about this remarkable place. So we talked about our summer programs, anywhere from 7 to 17-year-olds, although I remember having a summer camp cabin that was mainly 5-year-olds. That was an interesting week of camp. We do run programs in the fall and spring. Carl, I heard you talking about going out for mushrooms and finding chanterelles. We ran our mushroom camp earlier in November, and Westwind is a incredible place to go mushroom hunting in the fall. We also offer the site as a rental. Our largest renter has been the Outdoor School program. As you may know, every 5th or 6th grade student in Oregon has the opportunity to go to some kind of outdoor school program, whether that's residential or day programs. And Westwind is a place where that happens. As I was talking about, we also are actively involved in conservation. We're in the process of restoring a 7-acre horse pasture to coastal prairie. Oregon's lost about 99% of its coastal prairie in the last 100 years. And so we are using some seeds that are being gathered from a tiny little piece of coastal prairie that we have, and they're being amplified. And we're going to be restoring a small portion of our property for that. And then we're a nonprofit. And so we spend a lot of time out in the community looking for support. And so funding like this generous project is incredibly important to our ability to achieve our mission and get people outside. We'll talk a little bit about the challenges. I told you that our largest renter is Outdoor School. Our largest outdoor school renter, because of cuts to the Outdoor School program, will not be joining us next year. And that's a huge loss to us in terms of our earned income. It's almost a $200,000 loss. And that's 10% of our annual budget. And so we're always looking for organizations and partners to work with in order to achieve our mission. And so this project to fund scholarships has been incredibly well timed. I'm going to turn things over a little to Laura to talk more specifically about the different ways that we bring people to Westwind who might not otherwise have the opportunity or thought that they would have the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you. So, while this isn't necessarily directly related to the conservation work we do, it's very much important that we are committed to increasing access to the outdoors, and camp programs can provide so much exposure to the environment and community and those conservation practices, as well as so many other things. It's so important for kids. And so Westwind has made it a part of our mission to offer as many scholarships as we can. And so a lot of those scholarships are just open applicants through our registration process. So families who can't afford camp and would like to apply for scholarships, and they're welcome to do so. And then we also have a pretty robust partnership program that we've been building roughly since 2014, if not even before that. And that has become something that we've become known for, and then something that we're really passionate about. And this is just a list of partners that we're currently working with. And really this list just kind of showcases the diverse array of the different types of organizations that we partner with to ensure that we're bringing a lot of different communities out to the coast, out to camp. Most of these, all of these organizations are in Oregon. Some of them are on the coast, some of them are based in Portland, some of them support communities all over the state. So it's a really nice distribution of people. We've got Family Preservation Project, which supports mothers who are incarcerated and their kids. We have Kateri Park, is in Portland. They support immigrant and refugee families. Kairos and South Coast Pride are both in Coos Bay, supporting families who are low income, offering mental health resources. We've got Family Promise and Connexion Phoenix, which is actually in Lincoln County, Lincoln City, supporting folks who have experienced housing insecurity or impacts from wildfires in 2020. We'll talk more about AG Bell, which is an organization that supports kids who are deaf or hard of hearing. And then we have contacts with People of Color Outdoors, who increase access for people of color in the Portland area, but also around the state. And so just so many other organizations. And really, I think why this project is so important is because this is the first year we actually had to turn people away and had to limit how many scholarships we were able to offer them, just due to funding cuts and things like that. And so that's why some of these numbers say 0, whether they had people who we had to turn away or they just decided not to come. AG Bell is not on this list because they were actually able to fundraise completely for them to sponsor all of their kids, which is really great. And we even get kids from Alaska who come down and go to camp. But just to kind of showcase, kind of the distribution from this last year and what that looked like. Andy, you can switch it over. I think you'll have to click a couple times. So this, I'm just going to skim through some of this. This is just goes to more, excuse me, my words got muddled. It just goes to show the work we do to support our community partnerships throughout the process, because it is such, we're a small team, we have a small capacity, and we do a lot of different types of work. And this is such an important part of our mission. And so we do put a lot of work and a lot of energy into learning about each partnership's barriers and maybe, their access points for getting kids outside, whether it's transportation or it's gear or it's family support or things like that. And then, so that's a lot of the pre-summer work. It's really learning, talking with them, identifying their specific needs. While they're there over the summer, it's making sure that they have everything they need. They often come to camp without sleeping bags or without multiple pairs of shoes or extra rain jackets or things like that. And so we do a lot of work to make sure that they can have a successful experience while they're actually there. And then the post program is just continuing those relationships, getting feedback, learning about all the ways that we can continue to keep them engaged, and also considering the impacts of these programs outside and why they're so important for these communities, and really using that information to make our program more successful and more accessible for more people. This is just a quick snapshot of our work that we've done with AG Bell. We won't spend too much time on this, but just to kind of showcase the impact that this has had on our program and on these specific campers. We used to partner with AG Bell a long time ago. We revitalized that relationship a couple of years ago, and it's been really incredible. They support the deaf and hard of hearing community through the Tucker-Maxon school system. They're also advocates on the state and national level for accessibility and awareness. And so they do a lot of work regionally and nationally. We obviously run our programs, we do everything that we do. So together we can provide a fully accessible summer camp experience for these kids. And so we put aside 1 week of camp and they're able to come and become fully included and immersed into our camp experience. And so they're not isolated at camp, they're immersed with all of our campers, and they're put in different cabins. And then we also train and educate our summer staff on how to adjust and adapt programming and communication and all of those things to ensure that we're making every part of our program accessible and inclusive for all of these kids who come, which is an incredible learning opportunity for those young adults who are doing that work. So again, it's just a lot of orientation and training. We work specifically with an audiologist who has direct relationships with the individual campers and families who come out. She does a lot of the recruitment, so she can know what their specific needs are. If they have any specific accessibility needs, do they have hearing aids that require overnight charging, because we do have backpacking elements to all of our programs. So we think about that and how do we make those wilderness settings accessible for all of these kids. She comes out and does training with our summer staff. We do bring in more sound systems. We mic everything. It's just all of these little things that we've learned that we can do and we can tweak to make sure that our summer camp program, which is very traditional in a lot of ways, can be adapted and can be changed to meet the needs of these communities. And last but not least, while this is AG Bell specific, camp really is transformative. And obviously, Andy and I are very biased. We see the direct impacts of these programs on the kids that we work with. But at the end of the day, and I really believe this more than ever, these types of experiences are so important for kids, for the greater community, having these outdoor places that are protected and stewarded and can offer exposure to the environment and exposure to these inclusive communities. All of these things are so integral and important for kids to have access to these things today. And so we're just really grateful that we're able to, even with the cuts and threats to our funding and our programs and things like this, we're still able to offer so much for the greater community. And this will continue to be central to our mission so that we're able to really combine our passions of conservation and inclusive programming for people in Oregon. So there's so much more that we can say. We'll put our emails in the chat so you can stay in touch with us. But thank you for having us and letting us talk a little bit about the work that we do.
Well, thank you, Laura and Andy. That was great. What an impressive place you have there, and the programs sound fantastic. Do we have any specific questions?
I didn't raise my hand. I just want to say thank you to both of you. You can see that it's obviously clear that you're both very excited about the work you do. And I think that is a really fun thing to see. And I think also, like, your last slide is really impactful. I think the connections between the children and the families to have those experiences together seems just super important. And so I think it's really neat that you guys are fostering that. So thank you for everything you're doing.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
I will add, we're starting to see the long-term effects of these kinds of programs, because we've begun to hire adults who were campers of ours for our summer staff, which is something that we're just absolutely delighted that these young people are following that path.
That's great. I will say I'm going to look harder into your mushroom camp.
Yes, please.
Pretty good.
It's not to plug it, but it is pretty cool. We bring in mycologists from the region who are experts in their field, and it is pretty exceptional. And we also do the same for our foraging camp in April. So those are our adults only programs, and they're pretty special.
Right. Well, thank you for that. Maybe I'll see you there.
Sounds good.
Mark Labhart has his hand up.
Just a comment. This is in my opinion, a classic example of what OCRF was set up to do. Oregon Conservation and Recreation, getting people outdoors and experiencing the wildlife, the outdoors that might not have that opportunity. And this is exactly one of the things that that's right down all the barrels, if you will, of the Oregon Conservation and Recreation Program. So, and particularly with children. Yeah, that's great. Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mark. Yeah, we agree.
Well, thank you all. We appreciate you taking the time to come talk to us.
It's our pleasure. Yes. Thank you again for your support.
You're welcome.
Bye.
All right. Well, great. We've had two great presentations. But before we go to public comment, I would like to have Srishti, if you don't mind, Srishti, sort of give us an update on where we are.
Sure, and I'll try to keep it brief. And welcome, Jane. We also heard it's your birthday, so happy birthday.
You're here. Happy birthday, Jane.
So my update, briefly, and again, switching my OCRF hat for my professional hat, which is as the deputy director at WELC. I am working on finding an alternate funding source for ODF&W, specifically for the State Wildlife Action Plan. We had a huge campaign run in 2025, a legislative session called 1% for Wildlife that almost got through, but was stopped at the very end. And so we're determined to come and bring it back, and that's where we are right now. Short session is coming up. Oregon's legislative short session starts first week of February, the Monday of the first week of February. It's 5 weeks long, so it's going to be a sprint instead of a marathon. And we are bringing 1% for Wildlife back in the same language that it was for the long session in 2025. So it's still going to ask for a 1.25% increase in the state transient lodging tax, 1% of which is dedicated to the State Wildlife Action Plan implementation for ODF&W, and the 0.25 has breakdowns of many components, which includes OCRF. And what it earmarks is a certain percentage point for OCRF to get that funding from the state TLT, and that is projected to be around 3 million a biennia when it kicks in. Of course, because it's a percentage point and revenue tends to increase over time, that number will change and more than likely increase over time. So that's kind of where we are. So we have been working very hard on this campaign since last session ended. I basically took 1 month break and I was back on this wagon again. So it's been on. We have had even a bigger coalition of partners join us this time around. So that's super encouraging. I think it shows that earlier where folks might have been a little bit hesitant or skeptical are now seeing this as inevitable. So that's a positive sign. We have been working at the state legislature during the legislative days. There was September legislative days and now November legislative days. Went by just now, like last month, and there's January legislative days before session kicks in. The bill has been submitted for drafting. The legislative deadline was, pre-session filing deadline was November 21st. We have a legislative concept number, which does not actually mean a bill. The bill number is different. But legislative concept is what you start working with, and then we'll have it finally submitted for getting a bill number, which will only happen in January. The legislative concept number is 168, or LC 168 is our bill number right now. We are feeling positive in the legislature, especially on the House side and leadership there, in being prepared to receive this bill and understand that, you know, they can try and move it one more time. We are still working on a Senate pathway and really trying to push as much as we can on the Senate side. And that's kind of the work and support we have been asking our coalition partners to provide us with. Is that the other piece is business outreach. For those not familiar with this bill, the main opposition is the Lodging and Restaurant Industry Association, because this is a tax on lodges specifically, not restaurants. But they have been using these funds primarily for tourism promotion up until now. And so because they see this as a self tax, they do not want to share it for other purposes. Obviously, we disagree on that perspective. And so we are pushing forward with that, but we are also trying to show that there are several other industries and businesses that benefit from Oregon's tourism. And that includes anything from your bird watching and kayaking and mountain biking tours to breweries and restaurants, to angling, fishing, hunting guides and outfitters. As a lot of groups. And so we're trying to show statewide support through other businesses for this effort. So that's the other piece that we're kind of trying to really push hard on. And the campaign so far has been going great. Rep Helm, Rep Owens, and Senator Nash are championing the bill. So they'll be introducing the bill as the chief sponsors of the bill. So it is going to be a bipartisan bill right off the bat, which is huge for a tax bill, if you understand the politics of taxes and the tendency of conservatives to not vote for a tax. So it is a big deal in that sense. But and Rep Helm so far has very clearly indicated that he doesn't want to make any changes to the bill, so keep it as tight and as close to what it is as possible. Of course, that depends on what the Senate pathway is and what the Senate requires to make sure that this moves through. So those conversations are ongoing. But for now, the bill as drafted is going to be as is, which is the 1.25% increase with 0.05 for OCRF, which equates to about 3 million a biennium. It's not earmarked or restricted in any way. Any questions? Commissioner Labhart.
So no questions, just a comment. So all of you on this call and those of you listening need to know how much Srishti has done behind the scenes to get this thing across the finish line. I'm sure I don't even know the leadership that she has been organizing and working through to get this done. So Srishti, you deserve a huge amount of credit. And I know it's still an uphill battle and there's still a ways to go, but folks, you just need to realize what she's done. She's personally taken this on, professionally taken this on, and got a coalition. And there's all kinds of, she'll immediately say, yeah, it's a village and all of that. And it is, but a village needs a mayor or a leader. And so I would put Christy right up there at the top of that with some others that are making this happen. So just so you all know, she's doing a heck of a job and we will get there this time. Let's hope.
Let's hope. Thank you so much, Mark. Really appreciate you saying that. Yeah, it's definitely an uphill battle because it's a tax vote. It requires 3/5 versus a simple majority. That's the difference for a tax vote. And so that just means you need more vote. A simple majority won't do. So that's where we are. That coupled with the fact that this is a tough legislative budget session we're going into because of the federal implications, federal cuts, and the state having to backfill a few things. They're making agency state budget cuts. All of that obviously makes legislature a little bit nervous about a new revenue stream that's not going towards backfilling this. We, however, see the purposes as different. You know, we're not going after general funds. We are protecting the general funds so that the state can invest in the priorities it has. We're going after a different revenue fund. If you're not asking for this money, which is mostly coming from non-Oregonians, 65% of Oregon's visitors are from out of state, you're leaving money at the table, and we want this money to be invested into Oregon. So that's kind of been our biggest argument in favor of still seeking this for this session, but also recognize it's an uphill battle. And as Mark mentioned, it's definitely a village, and the village is growing in population, which is great for us. We need all the support we can get. And I think if we can get like 3 businesses per person, will be golden in terms of showing how much support it has statewide. So that's kind of what we've been asking our coalition partners. We currently have 35 businesses signed on in support, and we're trying to hit 75 by legislative session. So that's kind of our goal.
So that just take that, each of you yourselves, and think about people you know or businesses that you're familiar with, and see if you could get them to sign up for this.
And we have a
big deal.
Toolkit. We have fact sheet for any topic you can think of that is even tangentially related to this topic, whether it's wildfire, whether it's economic implications, Portland metro area fact sheet, like whatever information that you can think of, we probably already have it. And we have a business outreach toolkit that I'm happy to share. So in your other professional capacities, if you know of businesses or have friend of a friend who owns a business that benefits from tourism in some tangential way, even that will go a long way.
Thank you, Srishti. And echoing what Mark says, thank you so much for everything you've done. Liza Jane, you have a question?
I have just a comment. Srishti, your article, your editorial, to see it in the Eastern Oregonian was awesome. You wrote it so well, and I think it makes a difference. I think your voice makes a difference, and seeing it there is really good. So I'll check out your toolkit and see how we can help.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And thank you for reading the op-ed. It was definitely personal. Yeah. I was actually standing in the House floor on a house second floor when somebody ran over and said, "Did you hear Jane Goodall passed away?" I was like, "What?" And I was there for 1% for Wildlife. So it was actually that kind of a moment where it feels like, oh, life has come a full circle. Like the person who led me to advocate for wildlife, has passed, and I'm still advocating for wildlife here. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Srishti. It's inspiring, the whole story. Okay, Reva, I don't see any public here, so I don't know that we have a public comment. So why don't we take a break? A lot of people have indicated they got to leave by 3, so let's just take a short break. Let's try to be back by 2:25 if you can do that, and we'll try to get done by 3. Okay? See you
good.
quick. All right. Okay, I think got a lot of people back. I'm trying to find, I managed to lose the agenda, but Reva, do you want to move on to the next section?
Yeah, happy to. Looks like everyone's joining back up now. So next up we have on the agenda is a application review and update to go over with you all. And I'll just let you all know that Kelly and I met and we had a nice discussion and we went through the application and we talked about a few things that we might want to update for this round, and we made some of those updates together, and then she has some discussion questions to kind of go through with you all. So I'll just start it off and then I'll let her take it away. But I had a brief overview of some of the changes we made to the application. It's very similar. These are minor changes, but the first thing that I did was work through language updates throughout the whole application. So, start and end dates. And then all references to drought have been removed since this round you are offering base program funding. So there is no drought restrictions for this upcoming grant cycle. And so all of that language has been removed. And then there were some areas where character limits we just noticed were a little bit longer or extensive than they needed to be. So we shortened those up to something that made more sense. And of course, updated the grant cap maximum to 25,000 for this round. And there was some suggestions to move the budget section up. I believe Jane Hartline requested that. And so we moved the budget section up. It was kind of at the bottom near, well, actually, next slide has the sections of the application. So the budget section used to be down here above applicant track record after project alignment. So you kind of had to dig for it. We've moved that up now right under project implementation. So when you're going through the applications, you'll see it more near the top. And then we've also moved up the OCF requested funds. You'll see it right at the beginning now. So you can see the grant request earlier on when you're reviewing these applications, project proposals. And then the other thing I'll go over is I added a conditional logic we already have a question at the end about ground disturbance for any projects that might have ground disturbance within their project. And there's a box for them to check whether they have consulted with the State Historic Preservation Office, or SHPO. And now we've built into the application a way for them to upload the case number. If they have consulted with SHPO, they can now upload that, and that's a way to more streamline the process if they are funded on the back end. Once it goes through contracting, it just helps move things along faster if it is a project that involves any type of ground disturbance and might need cultural archaeological review. So those are some of the updates. And I think that Kelly, unless I forget, I think you could probably take it away now if you'd like to kind of go through.
Yeah, and I'll try and move through it fairly quickly. I know we have limited time here.
Liza Jane has her hand up.
Yeah, go ahead, Liza.
Oh, thank you, Carl. I have a question about why the intention behind having the project narrative is down there.
I know, I was actually just thinking that myself. I was like, it actually looks like the narrative should go above the budget and then it would come in. But I think it's up for changing, I'm sure.
Okay, it seems like that's the place where they can give you the why.
Mm-hmm.
and
It
the
is.
what. And it helps me to know that right off the beginning, and then they start building to that. But unless there's another reason, it feels like it could be higher.
That's a good suggestion, Liza Jane. Maybe as Kelly goes through it, you could kind of see the layout of everything, and where it talks about the abstract and then the narrative, and see if you'd like to move it up or what you guys think would work. I'm happy to make any changes that would be beneficial.
Yeah, and these were all just suggestions, and I have a couple questions too. So it is totally up to the board what you guys want to do. All right, what do we got next coming up? All right, this was just to show, I think, that we moved the project funds requested right up top. I know I've talked to a couple of you, I think, about this, but I'm always looking for that number, like what are they asking for? And that hadn't come until like the end of the application before. So I just kind of want to see that number right up top. And I think the only question I had about that, we had discussed whether it was like, do you want to know just the OCRF ask, or do you want to know like would you also like to add a box there that says like what they're bringing to the whole project? But that also comes later. So that's kind of a question for you guys, if you wanted to have additional information right in this very top box, or if you just want to know what they're asking.
I would like to, that's significant to me. I'd like to know what's the project cost, what part are we paying for? That kind of helps set the stage and how you might look at a project. I mean, and it's positive and negative. I mean, it may be, wow, it's great, we're paying for the whole thing and this is a cool project, or man, we're just a tiny little piece of it. It helps you frame the whole thing. Marat?
I'd like to see it up front. I always look at that as an important factor, as how much of the total budget are we funding?
Cool. So maybe leave the requested funds and then just put a box under that says total project cost or something, so you'd know the match. Cool. Kirsty said same.
Okay, I got a note of that.
Nailed it. I think that's the only thing on this page.
Okay, next slide.
Oh, project abstract, project narrative. Sorry, I just had this latitude, longitude, project abstract, describe need location, social. Do I have something on this slide? I feel like I just went through these, but I don't see anything on this slide. Did we change something here, Reva?
No, I think my only comment would be harken back to Liza Jane's want to see like the why of the project. It could be addressed in this abstract because they are supposed to talk about the need and impact in their abstract. So that it could be a quick summarized version of that at the top of the application. Just a comment before they get into like more detailed project narrative later on.
May I go ahead and make a comment?
Yeah.
Why do we have lat long on there?
Oh, that's for to map the locations of OCRF projects, so we can get in order to update our story map and to get that projects going, we need that lat long, and then we can get a nice map of where OCRF is funding projects. So it's kind of for monitoring efforts of the program.
Do you ever get that question from applicants, like they're not able to find a center point? It's not location. No, it's not a problem for them.
I haven't had any questions from folks.
Okay.
This has been in the application only recently in the past few rounds we've had it. I added it, and yeah, I haven't had any questions, or I think people probably can just pull up Google Maps and pick a point that they think is the best point and then pop that in there. So
okay,
hopefully
good.
It's not too much of an issue for them.
Okay, thank you.
Jane, you had your hand up?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Next slide, Kelly. Oh, I think you're muted.
I am. Sorry, I'll just leave it unmute. Yes, next slide, please. All right, our goal statement. This is all under project implementation. So here, Liza Jane, I think addresses your point because I think the words are weird for me too, because it has implementation, budget, and then narrative. To me, narrative is what I'm doing. Yeah, so that might help here, but actually an implementation is like where all this stuff kind of starts to come in. They got to have a goal statement, then your objective, and then but I think it is natural to do narrative next, probably still, where you go in and talk about all the things that you're going to be doing. Yeah, and we combined these two here at the end because it seemed redundant to me. There were project objectives where it said, list your bullets, of when you're going to get these things. And then you had to do a timeline where you also, put where you're putting in the timeline. So I just asked that we would combine those two. And that one was okay for Reba. But I don't know if anybody has any issues with that. And I do want to ask a board question with this one. And it was timelines. So that's something that we talk about in our proposal and how we grade, like timeliness. So one question I had for you guys is basically this whole grant is laid out application where Reba says you cannot spend the money before this date and the money needs to be used by this date. So it was a question to Reba too, but like I don't remember seeing applications where people were asking outside of the application window or like these really long applications.
Kelly, I think you went on mute again. It got muted.
Yeah, I don't know why it's muting me, but that's interesting. Maybe somebody muted me. I don't know where I stopped, but basically I wanted to talk with folks about how you're judging timeliness, because do you just automatically get a 6 if you're within the timeline, or do like 1-year grants? Are you tending to give that more of a 6, or like, I'm trying to think of it from the other side of the table. So if we're scoring timeliness,
Kelly, I appreciate you bringing that up, because that's been like for me, I kind of said, what exactly does this mean? And I interpreted timeliness, I think, differently than what was intended. When I think about timeliness, it's like, is this needed? Is this like something that's important to do right now? Like this is a timely project, not whether it's going to be done in a timely manner, which is the way we're supposed to be grading it, is more like, is this being done in a timely manner? So I wasn't even looking at timeliness in the right way, but then I didn't know what to give it. So I think I've given everybody I've ever seen a 6 because I didn't really know what wasn't timely. So I'm not sure I don't know how everybody else feels about that, but that's kind of, I realized after talking to Reba that I hadn't even been looking at it in the right way.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's a good perspective on both of them. I'm not sure what the right one is. I think I looked at it in terms of, did they seem to have a timeline that made sense where they could get everything done within the time frame they were proposing, which included this, the funding beginning end dates that OCRF might impose. Did it make sense? Was it going to work?
Yeah, I think that was more the intention, but somehow that was lost on me.
No, it's not. I mean, you're good. I mean, it does say in our little, we have our evaluation, and it just says how you're supposed to judge that is project length is no longer than 1 to 3 years. It says if longer length is justified, but it just says project of schedule or order of deliverables are logical and sequential for need, which is what Mark is talking about. So I guess, they're all a little bit subjective, but it's a little subjective of if you think it can happen in time. But I tended to just score it. If they were doing it within a timeline, you got the number. So, but again, then it felt a little more like yes or no question to me instead of a judgment call. But anyway, that's one thing I wanted to chat with you guys. If nobody cares, really, I say we just make sure that the definition on the evaluation fits where everybody understands it. So really understanding and the question in the same way.
I'm fine with leaving it now that I know what it means.
Okay.
Is there something we could add to clarify that what it means, what timeliness really is, to capture what you all just discussed?
I mean, I think it's in there.
Yeah, I think
Hmm.
what you said is in there. I just have to say, I just didn't read it. Or at least
So
retain that I had read it.
so I'm fine with it being combined with objectives. I think that works for me.
Cool.
I think I'm like everybody else. Timeliness is, yep, they're doing what they said they were going to do, so they all get the same.
Cool.
I can
Okay,
remember,
Bert.
I
ahead,
can
Jane.
remember reading some of them that they weren't going to start for like a year and a half in
Mhm.
their timeline. And I was like, well, that's, what are you doing? You know, so I think I was in line with Mark, just, is it realistic? And are they conscientious about that, their work, demonstrating that through that, answering that question? But I agree too, it can all be combined. That's great.
Cool. Moving on. Oh, deliverables. Good times. Let's see here. Where did I have that one at? Oh, so this has to stay. I was like, Reva, I hate this. And she's like, it has to stay. We put them in all the grants. So it's just a hard, as you guys know, you have to like move your cursor through the box to read anything. But again, I think if we go to having your objective with timeline, this will help us review this. And then the OCRF folks are using this in their contracts. So this is a little bit easier for them. And then we've got all this stuff, project measures of success. This wasn't the combination part yet. I think this was the next one. Right, Reva?
Yeah, I don't think we made any
don't think so.
changes here.
No.
Yeah, but just what Kelly said, we do use the deliverables pretty, it's a big part of the scope of work that goes into their grant agreement. And I was remiss earlier in the beginning of our meeting. I meant to introduce Becky Sell, who's on the call today, and she's been working really hard this round for the round 9 contracting of OCRF projects and getting them off the ground. So I totally forgot to introduce you, Becky. I apologize, but thank you so much for joining today. And thanks for all your really hard work to make these projects happen. And so she uses that section of the application in the scope of work, that the deliverables are important for her for evaluating the risk and putting exactly what the project is doing and delivering in that agreement with ODFW.
Thank you, Becky.
Thanks for being here, Becky.
Yeah. All right.
All right, next slide.
Yeah.
Okay. And there was nothing to talk about with measures of success. We kind of discussed that, but how it's used for, did we have anything in the notes about that?
I
For
don't
how
have
it's
anything in
used?
my notes about measures
Okay.
of success. Yeah, I think we're good. I think it
That
was
it's
just
used for the
kind of-
metrics. Yeah.
Yeah, showing what lives under each of these things for folks as a refresher.
Okay.
All
Next up is
right,
budget.
here's where you have your budget. And again, we'll get to narrative next. So if all of this still feels like we would rather have narrative before budget, this is where it fits in right now. So you've just told me what your objectives were and your timeline and your measures of success. And then you have the number you're asking and then the total project costs, which has your match in there. So again, this was just to show you what it looks like. If we need to rearrange order, we can, but that's where it is currently. You can go to the next slide. Matching funds. I think I was asking on this one because I was like, do you guys need to know what category? And again, I think this is one that Reva said, yes, they use in the contracting documents to show exactly where it comes out. But again, sometimes you see this in grant applications and sometimes you don't. But I think this, I had asked if it needed to be in there or not. But yes.
I think we use the total match. And if we don't need the breakdown, I think we could remove it. It's not a significant part of the grant agreement. It's included currently, but it doesn't have to be.
Okay. And I feel like there's also another place where we talk about like who's contributing the match and what that looks like. So if I can just remember again, I think there is another box where you actually have to talk about who it is and what they're contributing. So I don't know, how does everybody need this broken out this way? Does it make you feel better if it's like, it's matched in a certain category?
How hard is that to figure out, Kelly?
I mean, it's just more work. Yeah, you're then having to go, usually, I'm kind of coming up with a lump sum from each grant, other grants that I'm matching, but I don't necessarily have to break it down into what it is. Or if it is, I'm probably going to go to contracted services because that's my biggest lump usually.
I think there's too much work for
Yeah.
the benefit of us knowing it. I mean, again, first of all, I want to thank Kelly so much for going through this. The purpose was Kelly being a practitioner, we're trying to make this so it is easy on us, but also easy on the applicants. And so I really appreciate Kelly taking the time to go through it. And one of the things is what's onerous, and it's, I got to go back and figure out exactly what this other grant came from and what. I don't see that that's helpful enough to warrant having to fill it all out.
Yeah.
So I would say just get rid of the matching fund breakdown and just tell me how much matched is it.
Yep. I like that.
And again, for us, I'm also as a reviewer, like that's what sparked this was like, and I'm going through and it's like, I don't need that information or I'm not using it. So I just wanted to see if other people are using it because then I don't want to ask people to do extra work that I'm not even like, considering in the application. So. Okay, next
Perfect.
slide. Yeah.
I'm gonna
I
note
think
that
that's
we
a vote for
can.
getting rid of that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm gonna remove that.
I'm gonna do it.
I'm
Yeah,
gonna
see,
do
and then
that
you
right
got the-
after today's call.
Yeah, and then you got the matching funds breakdown right here. So I mean, you're gonna get rid of one or the other. Like, and I would honestly rather hear like what the money is doing versus like what it's a category. But it's up to you guys. But you'd kind of do it twice here again. And this also tells you if it's secured or not, which I think is really important as a grant reviewer. Have you already secured the funds or are you still trying to secure them that are matching?
So in this, it's referring back to that table and we're saying we don't need that table. So you could have a matching fund breakdown, just say, provide the amount and source of matching funds, or just get rid of that whole thing because you just got the amount. And do we need to know who it's coming from? Do we need to know how much is coming from every entity that's giving them money? Or do we just need to know we're 10% of the whole project? And I'm not sure that it's that helpful for me to know where the fund's coming from.
I do like the second part though, sorry about my dog, is the knowing whether it's already secured or it's anticipated / going to apply part. So I don't know where we'll capture that if there is no way for them to write that.
I agree with that. Yeah. I was assuming that by matching funds means they've got it.
Not always.
Thank you. Something that's come up when I'm reading them, and especially because I was on 2 different funding outfits at the same time, I was seeing the same ask. And do we ever ask, are you also requesting funds from any other project, agency for this project? Right?
Well, are
Is
they
it
asking for the exact same thing, Liza Jane? I mean, I have 9 grants right now for my one estuary project to fund it. So I've put the same project into 9 different funders for different parts, of course. But yeah, I was just wondering.
Right. We would see that maybe in the matching funds breakdown, anticipated funds for the project or something, but I have seen the same people asking for the project in 2 places, hoping,
Gotcha.
hoping they'll get funded and they'll turn one down. But for us, it seems like it would apply as we make that decision. I didn't know if it's in here anywhere or if anybody else cares or it matters.
Jane Hartline?
I kind of feel like it's probably not good for us to know if they've applied to other people because we don't know whether those other organizations are going to come up with any funds or not. So I'm not sure how we use that information other than to say, oh, they've applied to a lot of places, so they don't need us. And I also do like to know the source of the matching funds because I think that just gives it a little more credibility of that they have lined it up.
Mark Stern?
Yeah, I would second Jane's comment. I like knowing the source of the matching funds and I like knowing if they're secured or not. I don't need to see what they're going to spend it on particularly. And I think, I think with the private forest accord, we see the same grant in both OCRF and PFA. And I think that's fine. If by chance they got funded in both, they might decline one and then somebody else is going to get funded. So I'm not too worried about that, I guess.
Reva, can you just incorporate what I think Mark summed it up really well? Can you just incorporate what he said? Did you get that enough of?
Yeah. And I appreciate you, Mark, your perspective from being on both OCRF and PFA. I think that's really valuable. I noted that down, so thank you. I think that this section, from hearing from what you all said, I'll just tweak it a little bit and it should keep working for you in the application.
Right.
And one quick question on this. Yeah, it just seems like some of the wording and along those same lines. So we've gotten it broken down here too. In my world, everything that you're not paying for is match. And everything has a monetary value. So it's like, I also didn't know if people wanted it broken down between, because in-kind to me is the same as matching funds breakdown. Everybody's time costs money. So I just didn't know, do people like it this way where it's just in-kind support is also separate than your match?
Mara?
Yeah, I'd like to see it separated out. I mean, money is money and time is money, but it's also nice to know where it's all coming from. And so yeah, if it's not a big problem, I'd like to keep seeing it.
Sure.
But maybe it's just one question. So the matching funds, maybe there's like a column for cash and another column for in-kind.
And along those same lines, I'm just going to mention as a grant writer, this is my grant writing hat, there is no match required for this grant. So we still have, it's sort of to me included if you look at how we're evaluating things and, budget. And, I think most of us are considering like what other people are bringing to the table. I was just wondering if we should go to more like if you're providing match, you get a 1, if you're not, you get a 0, or else we just tell people like match is welcome or something, because it's just kind of when people say match is not required, we always put match in. That's not what that means. So it feels like we should either just say match is welcome but not required or something like that. Or maybe you judge it differently. On PFA, Mark, you might know this. I'm pretty sure on their back end, it's just like it's like a toggle. It's if you provided match, you got a 1. If you didn't, you don't. I think.
Yeah, I think that's how it works. But Kelly, you raise a good point. On the one hand, if we say match is not required, but then we're sort of asking for all this information and then we're kind of going, oh, well, they got a lot of partners and a lot of other money. That looks like a really solid project. It's a little, I don't know, we're playing two sides of the fence a little bit.
Yeah, it feels a little bait and switchy to me, but go ahead, Marat, sorry.
Well, but we are rating partnership. And
yeah.
And so match is really just an exhibit of partnership. I mean, if you have partners, but they're not doing anything, they're not giving you in-kind or money, then what are they doing? So the partners, I think, is linked to this section.
Okay.
Liza Jane?
I really like to see in-kind support. As a rancher, sweat equity is everything, but it tells me about the community and the support that's going towards the project. So I have a lot of value for that, seeing that.
Yeah, I agree, Liza Jane. And I always put like in mine, all my landowners' time, because a lot of them are doing their own work, they're fencing, they're doing all that stuff. But I put money on it. I mean, your time is money. So I give them the Oregon volunteer rate, which is legitimate. And then everybody, you know, because that's a lot of sweat equity, like you said, and not to mention the money they're putting in on their own projects a lot of times. So yeah. Okay, cool. I think that's sort of everything under the budget bit and matching. I was just curious how people were judging match. All right. Narrative. All right. And then here's all the background, and we shortened the length of this just a little bit. And then I think Riva had a suggestion, maybe if we wanted to combine background, implementation, and justification, or do you like them separately? There is a question about justification specifically on our scoring sheet.
It's just for clarification, this part where it says project narrative, it's not like there is a narrative that you write. This is the narrative broken down in these different categories: project background, project implementation plan. Is that correct?
You're right. Yeah, you're writing all those. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I could go to the next slide because there's 2 more sections to that narrative. Yeah, so I think the question was just, do you like it all separated out like that so you don't have to dig through, or we could combine some of these into one. But I think I heard from Carl
I like
that
it like that.
Okay.
I like the separate, have it separate.
Cool. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
that's
for-
good.
For what it's worth, you know, for me, for project justification, I feel like by the time I've read the abstract, by the time I've read the goal statement and looked at the budget, I probably have a pretty good sense of what they're trying to do, why they want to do it. But
yeah. Yeah. I mean, these are some of the things I guess I'm just trying to get at. And we have them. I mean, all grant applications have them because people write questions in different ways. But I'm with you, Mark, too. By the time I get through the top half of it, I'm like, of course, this is why you're doing this project. But, you know, making them spell it out again, too, is fine, especially if we have a question on it, I suppose.
And
I guess, Kelly, as a grant writer, when you get to project justification, do you like kind of pull on your hair a little bit and go, well, I already just said that, so how am I going to say it again?
Yeah, I don't know that actually I've filled out a lot of grant applications that have justification listed out separately like that. Like it is part of your objective and your goals and like the why you're doing it, you know, what species are you affecting, you know, why you're addressing the situation. So to me, you're listing all of your benefits within that, like your goals. So anyway, I would probably honestly just cut and paste from some of my other things if it were me.
Bingo.
Jane?
Oh, Jane, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I think it should be combined. I don't think it needs to be a separate section. I do think there's a benefit in just shortening this application, and there's a place to do it. So
you're,
can you go back one slide again?
Yeah, go back one. So yeah, under project background, you say, what is the issue addressing? So what if it goes in there?
And then it says, why does it matter? So that's basically,
yeah, why does it matter?
Yeah, so that's basically asking the same thing twice.
So let's take the justification section out.
I agree.
But then we need to, fix on the other end, because I think the justification is judged, isn't it?
It directly ties into a question you guys are evaluating on your scoring criteria. So it directly ties into impact or scale of the proposed actions, the way it reads is that you're looking for projects that have high impact on participating individuals and or target species or habitat. And so I think that's why that justification question is phrased the way it is, so that you can answer that specific scoring criteria. Because you're looking for outcomes for target species or target habitat are clearly described.
And
such
maybe you
as
just
number
move
of species.
language from the justification. Like this says, what's the issue you're addressing and why does it matter? And you could say, speak to impact on participating individuals or target species or habitat, or something like that.
So combine the wording from project justification to project background. And then, so my question is for an applicant, and this question might be for you, Kelly. Do you think you need a section that's, I feel like the project background is kind of open-ended. Is an open-ended spot where you can talk about the background of the project, and it might be the only place that they could, because the other ones are so much more directed. Is that beneficial in our application, or
the background?
Yeah,
I mean, I think it is
more open-ended.
Yeah. What is the, well, it's not, I mean, it is saying what is the issue you're addressing. So to me, yeah, I mean, you're just sort of stating your case here, and which is again why we took the character limit down. Like, you don't, if you should be able to clearly and concisely state your issue that you're trying to accomplish, fix. But no, I mean, I guess that's a part of every grant application I've ever applied to, is definitely this piece. What are you addressing and how are you going to do it and why does it matter? I don't know. Maybe I'm missing the question you're asking me, Riva. I wouldn't get rid of it.
I think, Riva, weren't you thinking, Riva, is it better to leave it open-ended so that they could use that rather than be really proscriptive of what that is? And one of the other reasons to consider not taking that one place out is Kelly is a great grant writer, and we're supposed to be trying to help entities that maybe don't have great grant writers. And by having a little bit more proscriptive application, they're going to go, oh yeah, well, I forgot about justification. I'll put justification. I mean, that's the only reason I can think of to keep it fairly proscribed. If you're a great grant writer, you're going to put it all in the project background. If you're not a great grant writer, you're going to look at project background and kind of say, well, yeah, here's kind of the general thing, and not necessarily address the points that we really need to know. So that's the argument for keeping it a little bit more detailed.
There's some good points, Carl.
So I don't think as Kelly said, if you're really sophisticated, you're going to just cut and paste that stuff anyway. So it's not that much. It's not that much more work to have it. And this way it's making it clear that we want to know these things, because that'll then refer back to that scoring criteria as well. So that way we're not having to worry about that. So I think for me, I mean, all these arguments are quite good, but I think just leaving it isn't going to make it too onerous, and you're going to be able to find the information you need as a reviewer. This is really helpful for me going over this. I think it'll make scoring easier in many ways.
Yeah, I think getting us all in line again a little bit sometimes to refocus a little bit. I'm going to wish Mauricio was here for the next part, though. Outdoor equity.
Yeah.
Yep. Here's all I'm wondering, and maybe this is something Jane might tie into too, but we do have projects that are just very specific research-driven projects. We saw a ton of them from the universities last year. And so I was just having like an internal battle with myself of like, I feel terrible giving it a 0, but it's a really good project still. So I'm just wondering if we should have like an NA option, but then is that like making people not think expansively about how to include equity? Like this is the part that I'm struggling with, and I really want to chat with Mauricio too, but go ahead, Jane. This is the
Okay,
conversation.
I just had a lunch for my birthday with one of the people who has been in on the funding for non-game wildlife since the very beginning. She was the non-game wildlife director for ODFW back in the 80s, I think. And she says, oh my God, you know, we worked so hard to get funding for these non-game species, and there are no other sources of funding for that. And, you know, we talked about the fact that these graduate students who have worked so hard and are doing this really important research, you know, they put a lot into it. And this is a way we can support them and support the next generation of scientists. And they may not fit the description of being a DEI person, but they've really worked hard and they deserve our support. But more importantly, the species that they are supporting deserve our report. If you look at some of the last round of projects, some of the ones that scored pretty highly but didn't get funded were things like learning about the status of kit foxes in the state and learning about you know, the wolverines and the turtle projects and all those kinds of things. And some of those maybe lend themselves to a component of having the local high school kids come out and help with the research, but some of them do not at all. And, you know, Claire was the person I was talking to was saying, you know, she remembers when she was a graduate student and the work that she was doing, like with kit foxes, requires camping overnight by yourself out in the middle of nowhere, because that's where the kit foxes were, and being very quiet, not stomping around. And it requires a knowledge of research techniques and things that, you know, that the local high school students are not going to have. And if we put this in here, what we've seen over and over is that people try to come up with something that will satisfy this, and it isn't to the benefit of the project. So, you know, I think the one that made me think about that the most was one that did not get funded, and our foundation gave it partial funding, was to include like non-traditional people in rare plant surveys. And I thought, oh my God, we've got all of these botanists who, you know, can't find jobs and are, you know, have trained and trained and trained. Why are we trying to train people who know nothing about botany and may not even be all that interested to do these when we have people who could do it, you know, 100 times more efficiently? So, you know, there's a place for both. There's a place for both. And I'm not saying that we don't want to do this, but I don't think we want to penalize projects for not doing this. So that's my opinion, and I know other people have other opinions.
Jane, I appreciate what you said, and I'll tell you how I personally deal with this is I don't ever give anybody a 0 on this. You know, it's like my base score is a 3. And if it's a really killer DII one, outdoor equity, I give them a 6. But nobody gets a 0. That's too big a spread. Or maybe this is a 0 to 3 one. I can't remember, but whatever it is, 6. It's 6. No one gets a 0. Basically for the same points you just brought up, Jane. I think every project has got some value in that way. And so I make it, that's how I deal with it. And that's maybe not the way everyone would want to deal with it, but I think it's a lot better because the difference between a 0 and a 6 can make whether your project makes it or not.
Mm-hmm. And I wonder if there's a better way to deal with it, but I don't know what it is. I didn't come up with a solution. I just came up with the question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so one, you don't want to minimize this because it's one of our key focus areas and kind of one of our mandates. So I think everyone, I think at this point, we've done this enough. Everyone knows how they want to deal with us on their own. And that's, I just told you how I do it. And I don't know that we need to make major changes one way or the other. But there's ways to address it, where you're not penalizing a pure science project because they don't particularly have a clear DEI connection.
I see the problem and the challenge and the opportunity as you guys have both described it. I guess, I've scored projects that don't have any component of DEI in them. I've given them a 0. But I also realize that has penalized those projects are not as competitive. That 6 points is a lot. And maybe we adjust the number of points in that category is one possibility, but I guess it seems
Yeah.
like we ought to have somewhat of a shared approach on how we score it, not just I go 0, Carl goes 3. Well,
Yeah,
I'm
I
not sure
agree.
what the right approach is. I'm not wedded to my approach either. I'm just sort of scoring it matter of factly.
I'm curious because there's 4 parts to these questions, which I could go to the next slide to show. But does anybody look at each of the 4 questions and then kind of sum them all together in their mind to make that 6 points? Or I'm just curious if anybody is thinking about it that way, dividing it up by the 4 outdoor equity questions.
I don't really. Yeah. In my head, I'm going usually like quality of equity, like included in, because I'm with Jane. Like there's so many people just trying to, and every time I talk to people when they call me to ask me about these grants, and I say, don't try to fit it in. If you're not genuinely trying to address outdoor equity, I would go somewhere else because it just doesn't, you guys have all read these applications. Sometimes it's just you're trying too hard or it's not really genuine. So I don't know. I tend to look at more of the quality and then I'm going, but I'm the same as Mark. I tend to like, if you're doing it, you get some of it. If you're working really hard at it and it's inclusive and thought, then you're getting a big number. If you're not doing anything with it, you're getting a 0. And it's just because we're asking people that this is part of our grant application is for you to include this because it's in there. So I don't know. Go ahead, Marat.
I just think it's important. It was one of the very first things we talked about, and it shows how hard people are working. I mean, it's easy to keep talking to the same people that you've always talked to and not bring in other people, but that's part of our goal is making this all more accessible to more Oregonians. So I think it's a really important part. And we could reduce the number from 6 to 3 if that made it feel more equitable.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if there's a way to have a statement in here that says something about the intent of this. That, when possible, this is a really great thing, but we do recognize that there are some projects, I don't know how to word it, that don't lend themselves to this, and I understand the thing of making them stretch a little bit, but the way this is worded, it almost sounds like what you were saying. If you don't have this component, then don't apply to us. And I don't want people to think that.
Mm-hmm. It's just been such a strong initiative of ours for a long time. Like I think that's the reason that I feel the same that if Mauricio was here, he would also be saying, I just feel like when I came into this group, this was like a main tone of this group was like getting people in the outdoors who don't traditionally do that, getting people involved with science who don't traditionally do that. So that's like what's drilled in my head, which is why, I mean, I don't tell people to not necessarily apply, but yeah, apply if you are genuinely, I told them equity is a big deal for this group, which it seems like it is from every meeting I've spent with you guys.
I just feel like we're really missing part of the intent of this original thing, which is to fund really important things for non-game wildlife.
Yeah, that's definitely,
If
I
we're,
think,
if we're saying, you know, you have to put in this DEI component, it's really, you know, that's why some of these really great projects are not scoring highly, because that isn't appropriate for them. So I don't know. I mean, maybe I just beg to differ. Maybe I'm on the wrong grant committee, but I still
I
want
think
us
the
to have
we're not going to solve, that may just be another entire discussion that we'd have to make about sort of what's important, what are our goals? You know, we've been through that, and to try to change that now is, I think, fraught. And so I think we have what we have, and the way I would suggest we deal with it before it was, maybe this is a topic for discussion. And since we have the fewer rounds, we got time to discuss these in detail. So before we make any major changes, I think there are ways to deal with this in the short term, and not necessarily impact or have the negative impact that Jane is referring to. But I don't think we're going to answer those questions now.
no, and I think at a minimum, we could even go to just a smaller scale maybe on this question. So it's not such a 0 to 6, maybe it is a 0 to 3 or something like that, but we can save that for another date. I think there's only one more question, 2 more questions. I'll let you guys go.
Ready for next slide, Kelly?
Yeah, that's right. We didn't change anything on the alignment section. I think my only question there is, are people, again, this is me just ground truthing with everyone else too. Are you giving people more points for being more aligned with more things? Or is it like a yes or no question, like you are aligned? That's that part where it's like, are you aligned with conservation or recreation with is it that part, right? With a bend. We have that one.
Yeah, and it talks about conservation priority areas and geographic ecoregions and program priorities. All of those metrics are in this section.
Great. So again, I don't know. It's just, I was curious if it was, you know, if it's in line with like more of the things, does that necessarily mean you're more aligned, or you know, it's just if you're aligned with one of the projects, or excuse me, one of the choices on the classifications, and then queuing up through there.
That's a good question. Probably harks back to, I feel like, Kelly, your question harks back to if I'm thinking of the scoring criteria sheet, the OCRF program priority alignment part of your scoring criteria, right? Which is probably, this section might be used to refer to that, to see that it's hitting alignment with the program goals.
So this is something that they're supposed to fill out, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of things under it.
Project alignment. Is there more on here than this, or is that it?
Oh, yeah. No, that's what she was just saying. This is the part that has like all the classification. So is it like monitoring or research, all the OCRF program priorities, the taxa, all that stuff lives in this section. Conservation opportunity areas, key conservation issues. That all lives.
Multiple choice question. Yeah, this is the multiple choice section where they just click a box. I could pull it up if that's helpful.
I think that is helpful to have.
Oh no, I don't want to get rid of it. This is a great section. I think this is a really smart section. I just meant as far as like, because we have to judge it on a scale of what, 1 to 15 or 1 to 13, something like that.
15.
Yeah. Like, so the project we did today, heard today about the camps, like some of that, what Mark was talking about too, it is like this perfect intersection of conservation and recreation. So to me, like that would be something that's highly aligned, you know, but if it's only conservation or only recreation, I guess I was just trying to, same as Mark Stern and we were all talking about, and Carl, it's like, we all obviously have a different scale in our head of how we're judging things, but I think we should still try to check in with one another and be slightly consistent about it. Sort of how you approach it anyway.
I kind of like it that this section's a little bit more objective. I wouldn't give them more points if they are ticking 20 boxes instead of 5. If it is a project that really aligns with like the conservation strategy and and the target species and all those kinds of things, I would rate it really highly. And I would also rate it really highly if it does a really great job of engaging people in conservation. But I wouldn't necessarily. I like that in this section it's a little bit more open.
I'm just curious. I think there's only one more.
Okay.
Track record. And again, this was sort of a little ground truthing point, was just like, are people getting, do your amount of partners count or the quality of your partners count? Or are you doing both of these things? Because I saw, again, there's lots of really great projects that's like, ooh, they have all their key people at the table, but maybe it's 2 or 3. And then there's some that have, 50 partners. So I just didn't know, again, where folks are, how are folks sort of judging that?
I guess I use it as an indication. Does it look like they have the capacity and the experience to do what they're proposing to do?
Mm-hmm. Perfect.
And are they involving the right people?
Yeah.
Because we saw some instances of where they maybe hadn't, for instance, talked to ODFW staff or hadn't partnered with other people who were doing similar work, and that can be a problem.
Mm-hmm. Cool. It sounds like we're kind of alignment on that stuff then too. You guys, I'm sorry for the doldrums right at the end of this meeting. We had such fun, exciting presentations, but this is something I've been kind of wanting to check with you guys over a little amount of time. Jim Hammett would have been great to be here too. I know he would have liked to dig into some of this stuff too. So again, I'm happy to follow up after any of this stuff. If anybody has any questions or whatever, but I think we've got a pretty darn good application, and we had a good one before. I just trying to tweak it a little and make sure that we're all kind of still in alignment with our goals and what we're looking at and what we're asking of applicants. So I appreciate everybody's time and thought on this process.
Kelly, you referred to it as doldrums. I think this was really valuable. I think this is maybe some of the more important stuff we've done. We have to keep this as a viable, good process. One of the things too that I think we can look back at the projects we funded, and we've done well. I mean, we've funded some, just as we saw today, we've funded some great projects. So the fact that we're trying to, it really speaks well to the whole committee and to you specifically, Kelly, that you wanted to go through this, that we're trying to refine this process as much as we can. And I think it's another reason why we need to have this 1% for wildlife bill passed, because we got an incredible system. We got an incredible process. And so we really got to keep this going. And so just another reason for everyone to get out and do what they can for that. And the fact that we spent all this time to vet this yet again just points to the quality of this committee. So thank you all for what you've done. So does that give you some things to work with, Reba? You can kind of fine tune this a little bit and.
Perfect. Yep.
That
was perfect.
Things to do. Great.
That was great. Great discussion. Thank you, Kelly.
So as far as the last, we did have something we want to talk about, effectiveness monitoring. Did you want to give us that timeline, Reba? I don't think it was a long.
Oh yeah, I didn't have much. This was just this update kind of came from a discussion I had with Carl that I really appreciated last meeting. everyone's discussion about effectiveness monitoring. I thought it was a great discussion that you all had. And I just wanted to update the committee that after that October 7th meeting, met with Sarah, and we started talking more about what would be a good timeline to actually get some of that work done for effectiveness monitoring for the program. And we started looking at schedules and figured out that what might work for myself to focus on that would be next summer after grant cycle round 10 kind of winds down. There's probably going to be a little bit of a gap near the end of the summer before the next grant cycle starts back up, because we're moving to a once a year grant cycle. And that might be a good time for me to focus more on effectiveness monitoring. So yeah, I'd have more time to kind of hone in on what we actually need to evaluate for that. And, take a look at, are we moving the needle? Are we having the desired effect, and get some data to analyze for the program? Whether that's monitoring by region or species, or are we implementing the swap? Well, we're going to figure that out. So I just wanted to update you all that summer next year is kind of a tentative plan for more effectiveness monitoring for the program.
Yeah, I asked her just to put that on there just so we don't forget it. Again, this was one of the things early on that we identified as something we wanted to do and do well. And so Reva's plate will be a little bit cleared by then, and we can focus on this a little bit better. So that's just keep that in front of people. All right. Well, thanks, Reva. As far as business items, the main one I had was that update from Sristi, which we already did. Mm-hmm. Is there anything else, Reva, that you have?
Yeah, I just have a few things. So one more quick update for you all, since I have you all here today, is to follow up on the wildlife connectivity funding. I'm trying to keep updating you all as soon as I know more. But so since our last meeting in October, there was some movement with ODFW leadership in that discussion about the ODOT funding swap. So swapping the funds to kind of free up the restrictions that we are having with these lottery bond funds for the wildlife connectivity lottery bond funds that were received. So because there's some movement happening there, I wanted to let you all know that it's happening at a higher level with the chief operating officer, I believe his title is, at ODFW, meeting with ODOT. And so that's a positive note that I wanted to share. So there is potential for that funding swap to happen. That's all I know now, but I'll keep you guys updated, and we'll just keep crossing our fingers that could move forward, because that would be really helpful for the funding that we have to make it less restrictive. So that's all I had for that.
Just to remind everybody, there's still about 3 million of that left, something like that. And so it would be great to be able to spend it.
That's right. 3.93 million remaining. And so this is our round. I just have a round 9 and 10 timelines to bring you up to speed on. So your round 9 spring 2025 RFP, most of those projects have been going through contracting with Becky's hard work here. Most of those are fully executed or will be soon. And then for your round 10, this is 10th grant cycle. You all we're about to go into your 10th grant cycle. That's incredible. So that's going to be releasing in just a little under a few weeks here. So December 15th is going to be open for application. And so I'll make those updates that we just talked about today in the application for this grant cycle. And then something to keep note for you all, the review period is March, mid-March through mid-April for round 10. So just keep that on your minds for scheduling. And the committee voting for round 10 will be at your May 5th meeting, and then move towards commission in June. All right, any thoughts about this timeline? Anybody leaving the country or not going to work for them? Go ahead, Mark Stern.
Well, just a question, and maybe just to share a note. I know in the PFA, they recently had to review the Oregon, the OARs. And in that review, they changed it so that a successful applicant could start spending funds as of, say, in this case, June 18th, even though the contract wouldn't be in place yet. So obviously they have to have their own money or they have to be able to move forward. But it just gives them a way to hit the ground sooner. And so if they had a summer project, in this case here, they could start basically allocating the OCRF dollars and could get reimbursed for it once the commission had approved it. And I don't know if OCR, and that gives the applicant an additional 2 months, can basically begin to initiate the grant too much sooner than waiting for the contract to actually be signed. And
that's a good point.
I don't know if if I think PFA, we had to redo the OARs. Help me, Mr. Lafhart. I'm trying to remember why there was something that came up in terms of public meeting or neighbors or notifying the county or something that forced PFA to do that at the time. And I don't think it's a process the department really likes to do because you have to work with DOJ quite a bit. Anyway, it's just a thought. If there's an opportunity to change it, I think it would help our applicants be able to roll forward sooner.
Sarah would have
Thanks,
known
Mark.
about that, right? If it was PFA. Yeah, so just ask Sarah if that's an option. Reba.
Okay, will do. Yeah, I know the OCRF went through an OAR revision at the end of 2023. I'm sure you remember that. And that it would probably be a similar process to that Oregon Administrative Rule revision to get that change that you suggested, Mark, in place in your OARs.
But
So
I think
will.
Mark makes a great point, and I think Kelly might be able to speak to this. I mean, people are starting their projects in June for the summer, and to be able to actually get it going may be really helpful. So yeah, I think it's worth us looking to see if that's not too onerous.
Okay, I'll look into it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think for a lot of them, NPFA and OWEB at least, a lot of them are like upon grant signature, but they will let you backdate invoices. So yeah, you can go ahead and spend it knowing that you're going to have it. Yeah, that is very helpful.
And what
Becky,
about
do you have any insight on that?
I was just thinking, what about the risk that it doesn't, what is the risk if it doesn't go through the contracting process? If it doesn't, something stalls out along the way, is there any risk with that?
I've only been here a short period of time, but from what I understand, can you hear me? I don't have my microphone down.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. But from what I understand is, it's just what I understand. It could not be correct, but people are able to start spending the money like what you're suggesting. But if something falls through, then they're going to have to take that risk of not getting reimbursed.
Yeah, that sounds right.
That sounds right. Yeah.
But we can definitely look into it more and move forward from there. But that's just a glimpse of what I've heard so far.
Great. It's worth clarifying that, Reva. Just kind of
Mhm.
maybe we're already set up to do it.
If we can do it without revising the OARs, because it is a very lengthy process that needs to go through DOJ review and you know, that costs some funds and time. If we can figure out a way to get it approved without going through a full OAR revision, that would probably be the best for applicants and for a program. But we may need to go through that process. We'll have to find out.
Thanks for bringing that up, Mark. So you don't have anything else, Reva?
Nope, just a reminder of our upcoming meetings, and then meeting wrap up. So I send out the calendar link for next year's meetings every other month, starting in March, going through November. I hope you all got that. If you didn't, please let me know. And then, of course, always with the caveat that there might be some additional OCRF Advisory Committee business. We might need to reschedule or add a meeting here or there, but this is the schedule we have set up for next year so far.
So no January, February meeting.
That's correct. We might need something in there, but from what I'm seeing, for a more efficient and appropriate use of your all time, I don't think we would need to schedule a January, February meeting at this time.
Great. So does anybody have any other questions or concerns or comments about what we talked about today, or where we're at, where we're going? Okay. Well, thank you all for staying. We lost a few people, but it's a great conversation. Good things to look into, Reva. And with that, I hope you all have great holiday time, and hopefully we'll be getting some snow here soon, and all will be good. So it's great meeting with you all again, and look forward to seeing you next year. And I'm glad. Thanks for commenting on that video.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.